This video is brought to you by Patreon. Patreon! Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. Well, in my line of work, there's nothing more exciting than the discovery of some lost media. Vic's Vacant Lot was a short-lived program that originally aired on ESPN in 1982, and then reran on Nickelodeon from July 1st, 1984 to May 26th, 1985. Hosted by tennis pro and instructor Vic Braden, the show focused on the games kids make up for themselves, including games sent in by young viewers through the mail. As you may recall, we did an episode of Vic's Vacant Lot nearly 3 years ago, which covered the show's larger context and the career of Vic Braden. We won't be rehashing that here, so if you're interested, there's a link to the original video in the description below. I wasn't too hopeful of ever finding an episode. Sports shows have never really done well on Nickelodeon, and Vic's Vacant Lot was quickly moved from a nice 2 p.m. weekend time slot to a dreary 7 a.m. time slot. Kids aren't waking up early on their day off from school to record Vic's Vacant Lot. And surely an ESPN recording would be even less likely. Fewer VCRs in the home, fewer people with cable, and the fact that Vic's Vacant Lot had no consistent time slot on ESPN due to the loosey-goosey scheduling of sporting events. Yeah, we're never going to find any footage, are we? I am so happy to be wrong. In January of this year, Internet Archive user Chip Cogswell uploaded 1 and roughly 1/2 episodes to the site. And to my surprise, it seems to be a recording from the show's ESPN days. Pretty good quality too. A few tape glitches here and there, but that's about it. So without further ado, let's watch some Vic's Vacant Lot.
Hi, I'm Vic Braden. And if you're like me, you really love sports. You like to watch sports, you like to learn about sports, but most of all, you like to play sports. You're not the kind that just wants to sit around. You want to be where the action is. And that's what today's show is all about. How to have fun with sports, even though you don't have the best equipment, you don't have the best places to play, and you don't have all the teammates you'd like to have.
The first game featured is an on-bicycle variant of tag, where you're riding around the neighborhood trying to touch the seat of someone's bike. There's not much to the rules, so the segment spends a lot of time trying to get the most dynamic shots of kids on their bikes that they can. This is the kind of image older people think of when they complain that kids don't go outside anymore, that video games have rotten their brains. This is, of course, pure nostalgia goggles. Kids still go outside all the time, and sometimes they throw rocks at my front door for some reason. But then, as to completely burst the bubble of this image, Vic brings some of the kids over and goes, "Are you crazy? You're gonna get yourself killed."
Actually, no, you guys told me that every time a car comes by, you guys yell out cars. But I saw 50 cars go by in your game and nobody yelled out cars.
I did.
John, I saw you come out of that driveway. You looked like a 747 coming out of that thing, man. Your wheels didn't hit until you got on the other side of the grass. So, I mean, how are you going to stop when you're in midair, and if the other person doesn't see you, you're going to go right into the back seat of that car?
It's just a chance we have to take.
Yeah, but maybe you don't have to take that chance. If you're riding a bicycle fast, you may only weigh 100 pounds, but when you're going rapidly, you could exert up to 500 pounds of pressure. That means you could really wipe out a pal. So before you ever engage in a dangerous game with bicycles, get your parents' permission. Also have tremendous respect for your teammates, because when you do all of those things and you respect safety, then you're going to have a heck of a lot more fun a lot longer.
It's interesting what exactly is being prioritized as safety measures around this time. Looking both ways before entering traffic? Sure. Asking parents for permission? I guess. Wearing helmets? What's a helmet? The second segment features a group of Mexican-American kids and a game they call Shanghai, a sort of ball and stick game for when you don't have a ball, just sticks. And it's surprisingly complicated. A game with 3 stages of play: determining points by units of measurement. Compared to bicycle tag, Shanghai may as well be Warhammer.
If the fielders don't catch the stick in the air, they throw it back towards the batting stick. And if the return stick hits the batting stick, the batter will be out. But if they miss, the batter stays up and now hits this way, called a batazo. If the stick had been caught, the batter would have been out. Again, the stick's thrown back. And had it landed within one length of the batting stick, the batter would also have been out. However, each stick length away is a point for the batting team. In this case, 16 points. Now, the batter hits the short stick a third way by bouncing it into the air and then hitting it into the field. This is called Shanghai. Now, had the stick been caught in the air, the batter would have been out. But since they missed, the distance from the hitting area has to be measured. And the team at bat receives a point for each length of the stick away from home plate. On this hit, the batter made 44 points.
And it's here that the value of Vic's Vacant Lot comes through, a documentary series on the games that organically developed in certain ethnic and socioeconomic communities. How does living in less trafficked suburban areas affect play? How does not having enough money to buy sporting equipment affect play? It's not a detailed documentary, sure, but as far as I've been able to find, this is the only footage of this variation of this game. Its origins probably go back to another stick-hitting stick with points based on distance game called Tip-Cat, which was brought to North America by European colonists in the 17th century. You can still find variations of Tip-Cat played all over the world. Here's some young folk in India playing their version in 2017. The episode ends with a segment on group leadership, how groups of kids determine rules and settle arguments.
If you are the leader, what responsibility do you have for the rest of your teammates?
Well, I don't really think I do have any.
But what about the person, James, who never gets a chance to play and wants to grow and wants to experience the fun that you get, and you're the only one that can allow that person to have those experiences? What can you do to help that person out?
Well, you can pass the ball to him and hand it off to him a lot and try to make it evenly as possible to get everybody a chance to play.
So you do have a little responsibility, or at least you have a lot of power.
It's not very substantive. Vic Braden is charismatic and charming as he was in most everything he did, but in terms of actual advice for children, there's not a whole lot here. Again, the value of this program is in the documentation of these games in these communities around this time. I probably would have been very disinterested if I tried to watch this as a kid, but as an adult invested in history, it's actually very fascinating. I believe this originally aired pretty early in the show's run. While the episode does encourage young viewers to write in to a provided P.O. box, none of these available segments features what the show is famous for, detailing games mailed in by children. There's also no hint of the show's eventual sponsorship with Honeycomb cereal. Perhaps that was a Season 2 development. The partial second episode available profiles a frisbee race game, with tips on optimal ways to hold a frisbee.
Okay, the grip that we suggest that people seem to have the most success with in the beginning is the fan grip. You hold it just like you were going to fan yourself, and it should be comfortable. You should hold it tight enough so that it's going to not fly out of your hand, but yet not so tight that it's a strain.
And then we get a bit about girls and the potential sex discrimination in the games children play. Like the segment on leadership, it doesn't really come together in any kind of cohesive thesis. No lesson more precise than, hey, boys, let the girls play too. We just have Vic giving these girls a platform to air out their grievances, which isn't nothing. Letting kids have their voices heard would be one of Nickelodeon's defining principles.
Melanie, you say it's a challenge to play against the guys. What do you mean by that?
Well, all the guys go like, let the you wimps just like stand back and let the real people come through, but it's not true, because we could be real people if they gave us a chance.
In some ways, acquiring Vic's Vacant Lot was a course correction from Nickelodeon's previous attempt at sports television, Reggie Jackson's World of Sports. One of the issues of the silver ball era of Nickelodeon were shows like Spread Your Wings or Going Great, which profiled children excelling in various fields like art, sports, and entertainment. After a series of focus groups, eventual Nick president Jerry Laybourne discovered that these shows were not having the effect they were hoping for. It made kids depressed. Their common response was, "Well, I'll never be that good, so I won't try that." Reggie Jackson's World of Sports had a very similar vibe, a show that profiled exceptional young athletes on a professional level. And while just watching sports is its own form of entertainment, there was still the chance of triggering that sort of inferiority complex in kids interested in getting into sports. By contrast, Vic's Vacant Lot kept things attainable, profiling everyday kids and the games they played. Here's a few easy tips about how to hold a frisbee, and now let's see some sports you can play at the park or in a driveway with nothing but a couple of sticks. Or here, how about I show you how to adapt common sports into the shape of the place you're living in.
You're going to see how some creative guys and gals play a lot of sports in very small backyards, and their ideas may just help you.
Acquired in the transitionary period between the silver ball and orange splat eras of Nickelodeon, Vic's Vacant Lot was a step in the right direction towards child empowerment and away from stuffy educational programming. It was not, however, very substantive or successful. Sports just never caught on Nickelodeon, and Vic's Vacant Lot and Reggie Jackson's World of Sports left the channel within a week of each other in May of 1985. Vic's Vacant Lot's value is perhaps greater now than it was in the early 80s, now that it's a historical document instead of ESPN's only children's show. In its time, it was a nice, cheap, fluffy piece that really didn't want to commit to its more educational segments. But now it's a time capsule of a period of time in American culture, a look at how children played and acted in the early 1980s. I would not say no to more of this show being discovered, but even if this much is all we're ever going to get, it's still quite the treat. If you want to watch it yourself, there's a link to the uploads in the description below.
Nick Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon.
Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support Nick Knacks and other Pop Arena projects, consider contributing to my Patreon. Every dollar goes to production values, research materials, and corn, a very versatile vegetable. You can also support the channel by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, hitting that bell icon for notifications, following me on Twitter, sending a one-time donation through PayPal or Coffee, and sharing Nick Knacks with all your friends. Thank you again, and Black Lives Matter.